So for those of you that are watching on YouTube, go get your palomitas because it's about to get really good, okay? My money story actually starts when I am in my mother's womb. So my name is Luzy King. I am a Latina born and raised by my single mom who had 5 children. So I grew up low income and I did everything right. I checked all the boxes. I had the professional career, the degrees, and 2019, I realized that I was living somebody else's dream rather than my own. And I made this really hard decision, or something that at that time felt like the worst decision of my life, which was giving up my corporate career to become a stay-home mom. And I was not the best stay-home mom. So
Why do you say that?
I say that because I have so much respect for the mujeres that that's their dream. That their dream is to
Yeah.
be a great stay-home mom. That wasn't my dream. So I've always
Oh,
been
I see what
very
you're saying.
ambitious and I wanted more. So I said, well, now that I have the luxury of being financially stable, and by that I mean like having like a husband that was taking care of the
Yeah.
house at the time, I want to do something for myself. So I decided to go back to school. And that decision changed my life because I learned about investing, generational wealth. I learned about how I don't have to work hard for money. And that journey opened up the doors for me to also be very visible, which was something that in the past felt so scary. Like I was raised to be private. You don't talk about money. You don't go on Instagram and talk about it. You don't have a podcast and talk about it.
Yeah.
And now there's a version of me who is no longer that little girl that grew up low income. Now I am on track to make work optional by 45. And I'm also an angel
Amazing.
investor of Latina owned brands. And that might seem like, wow, she went from here to here. But there's a lot of meat and potatoes in between that maybe we can talk about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, just to kind of give people like the timeline, I would definitely love to just start with, you kind of mentioned a little bit growing up low income, but I want to dig deeper into like what your money story is growing up, right? I mean, we all have a money story that we all want to get into. So, what's what's
Yeah.
what's the one that made you who you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Is your podcast on YouTube too as
Yeah.
well? Okay, so for those of you that are watching on YouTube, go get your palomitas because it's about to get really good, okay?
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
So my money story actually starts when I am in my mother's womb. My mother went through a lot of financial hardships when she was pregnant with me.
Mm,
And obviously, I didn't know this right away. As I learned more about money and financial trauma, I discovered that there is such a thing as inherited trauma. And so I had it when I was in my mom's belly, and I grew up by just watching my mom work hard for money. My parents separated because of money. So I was carrying a lot of debts that didn't belong to me. And that translated into me believing that if I had money, I'm going to be in a partnership with someone who's going to argue with me about money. That also led to me believing that negotiating a salary wasn't worth a fight. That led
mm,
me to me believe that in order to be loved, I needed to spend a lot of money that I didn't have on myself. And so I didn't start healing my relationship with money until my early 30s. And let me
wow.
tell
Okay.
you, that journey was not easy, but I knew that I needed to do the work the moment I realized how much and for how long I have been avoiding doing the work.
Mm,
So I have a version of me that was very much broken.
yeah.
And I made that time to say, I need to heal this version of myself to become the person that my ancestors never dream of because they were so busy working hard for money. And I dove into my money story from a place of I need to be very compassionate with myself because I'm also a recovering perfectionist. And so I wanted to have all the answers, and I said no. I just need to take action. If
Hmm.
me acknowledging today that I have a money story is the first step, I'm going to do
Right.
that.
Right.
And that's how I got started.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely beautiful and empowering. And you mentioned having like the trauma, and you mentioned specifically debt that was passed down to you. Now, was there a moment when you realized that, like when you were a kid, like did your parents put debt on you that was passed down, or was this something like that you were observing that your parents got into debt, and then that's why you were kind of like living the
Yeah.
life that you were?
So when I mention like carrying my family's debt, what I mean is like my grandparents had in a healthy relationship with money from both sides of the family.
Okay.
And I grew up with a lot of financial stability. So by the time I was 18, I had moved 28 times. So I never had a place that I could go
28.
home. Yeah, 28, which is
Oh my
crazy.
gosh. What are some of the places that you were, if you don't mind sharing? Because that,
Oh,
wow.
like, I have a home now.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm complaining about, oh man, I need to clean the carpet, it makes me realize growing up, I live in houses that had no floor.
Hmm.
Like it was just dirt. And so I need to come back and say, if you have to vacuum this carpet, like you better get like happy about it. And I don't always vacuum because I now hire help, which is
Okay.
also another thing that financial freedom has allowed me to do.
Hmm.
But coming back to what you were saying, a lot of us carry the behaviors of our abuelos. For example, if our grandma was really good at savings, we're like, okay, my grandma was saving, so I have to follow that blueprint. If our parents are like, hey, solo se vive una vez and go spend money and live it up, we're probably doing that, right? If our
Yeah.
parents never feel worthy of more, we don't want to have wealth because we love our parents. And so, how dare I to say that I want to become a millionaire when my mom is afraid of money? And so, that's what I mean by carrying the debts that don't belong to us.
Gotcha.
Um, my mother worked three jobs or multiple jobs sometimes to afford, taking care of the five of us. And so she actually used that to get out of a unhealthy relationship with my dad, which I
Oh,
do
that's
talk about
interesting.
this in my book that is coming up.
All right. Yes. Yes. A little foreshadowing for what we're going to talk about later. There was five of you guys then. I
Yes.
didn't. Yeah. I see. I didn't know. I was like, I wonder if she's just sort of like an only child, or she has siblings. But that makes it even more interesting from your mom's perspective, and like that's insane. Like she was, racing you all, and just being that Latino woman with like just trying to make it right, and like have her kids also just kind of live that, quote unquote like American dream, right?
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
let
go
me
ahead.
add something that I don't want to forget that I think is so important for me to also share with your audience in terms
Yeah.
of like healing my money journey.
Yeah.
It also meant that I needed to have a lot of compassion for my mom
Right.
because, when you're growing up, sometimes you are a teenage person and you're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
dare my mom to do all these
Yeah.
things. And I have so much compassion for my mom because I healed my own story. So I didn't focus
Mm,
on the things that she went through at the beginning of my journey. I had to focus on the things that I didn't want to follow anymore and the things that I went through. And once I understood me, I was able to understand my mom.
mm-hmm.
And I love my mom because she truly did so much for her
Right.
own life, for the life of her children. And so, for the listeners that, because I know you have them too, just how I have them, the ones that don't have a good relationship with their parents,
Yeah.
you have to understand your own story, and that will help you understand theirs. And that relationship just become healed both ways. And it's so beautiful and it's worth every single second.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it's even more interesting because you mentioned it, and I'm curious now that you brought it up, was how she used like the debt to kind of get in a bad relationship, and would you even recommend that?
Yeah, no, so she leveraged that to leave my dad because
Uh-huh.
she just couldn't keep up with him anymore. And she went and asked a neighbor to, hey, can I use money? And they're like, I don't have any money, but I have a
Ah,
credit card.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't recommend that people let people borrow money. Um, just like this person, right? Did to my mom. But what I do recommend is don't stay in a relationship because
Right.
of the money. And a
Yeah.
lot of women in our community do that. They feel that there's no way out because if they leave, who's going to pay for the house? Or if they leave, who's going to provide for their kids? And a lot of women do stay because of that. And so
Right.
look for resources. There's so many resources to help people not stay in a relationship because of money.
Yeah, exactly. And I know you, even though you said like don't, like don't borrow money and whatnot, but I think in that case it's like you it it kind of brings to like how you use money as a tool to move you forward, whether that's like, obviously through like investments or just like in your personal life and like even relationships, right? Because I mean, you're just leveraging money at that point, even if it's debt, to like get out of a bad situation. And I think that is actually a pretty good idea because if you're like in a bad situation, maybe you're also not the most like financially like healthy, right? So, maybe getting out of that situation as well is gonna, even if it takes borrowing some money, is gonna at the end of the day be like an investment in yourself. So
Yeah.
that's how I kind of viewed that story. That's why I thought it was really interesting.
No, absolutely. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a big advocate of leveraging debt as a
Oh, okay.
tool. I personally have my own core philosophies on money, so I believe that the debt has no moral value, and just like money. And so one of the things that I did for my journey was leveraging debt, so I could
Oh.
invest more, so I could grow a business, so I can buy a business. And
Mm.
when you share your dreams with people and you mention debt,
Yeah.
they automatically say, ¿Qué estás haciendo? Like, you're crazy. You just need to work hard, like pick up another shift or work extra hours or vende tamales or blah, 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 blah. But it all equates to more work versus no, I'm going to leverage this debt as a personal investment on myself or the stock
Yeah.
market or a property. And so I do encourage people to leverage day, but you also have to have a plan. It's not like you're gonna leverage day and then you're gonna go on vacation and look
Yeah,
at a
right.
car or clothes. You have to
Yeah.
be very strategic. But in our community, we can't continue to afford to be afraid of debt because
Yeah.
debt is a tool.
Right. Yeah, no, and now that you even like you brought it up, I was gonna get into it. I was gonna ask you if you had any like how much debt did you end up racking up yourself in your journey? Because like you said, right, there's good and bad debt. But it just depends how you use it to leverage yourself and how you make yourself like get ahead with it, right? So I want to know how much, like, if you had a certain amount of debt, how much did you have, and how did you bring it down?
Yeah. So I had all the debts. Okay. So when I was
All the
younger,
debts.
I had credit card debt. I had a personal loan.
Okay.
I went into a payday loan to borrow money for a party to buy gifts for friends that I no longer have.
So did you have a, sorry, I was like, so did you have a plan when you first started getting into debt, or were you just like,
No, no,
I'm
no, no. This is
okay?
the
Because that's what
younger
it's
version
sounding
of me.
like to
No,
me
I
right
was
now.
just like, let me swipe that. Let me do the my credit score was awful. But when I left my corporate career, my household was $220,000 in a student loan debt, and that is combined for my husband and me.
Okay.
And so, looking at that number, we realized that, hey, I don't have a job. Like, I don't have a job. I'm a
Right.
stay-home mom now. My husband just had better family business, and so I realized there's something that we need to do because there's no way we're gonna be carrying this debt until our 50s or 60s. And when I
Mm-hmm.
started doing my research, a lot of the strategy was just pay the minimum and keep doing that and cut expenses and be frugal. And I realized this is a bunch of crazy stuff. I don't want to do this. That's how I grew up. Like, I grew up low income. Like, I know what it's like to eat beans and rice. And so our strategy was, let's get clear on how much money we need to pay every single month to pay it off in 36 months. Why 36 months? Because I was pregnant with my first daughter. and we knew that we didn't want to have a 5-year-old
Yeah.
and still have debt. And so our strategy wasn't about let me look for what I should do. Our strategy was this is what we want to do that works for us. And so, based on that, that's when I decided I have to have my own business. I have to create
Oh
multiple
wow.
income
Okay.
streams. I have to put myself out there. I need to make investments in myself that are going to help me save a lot of time. And my first investment that in that moment feel like the biggest one was with a Latina who helped me learn all things online business because I have an MBA, so I was running a business in my
Yeah.
corporate career, but I didn't know what it was like to be part of the digital space. And so she taught me how to go live on Instagram. That like years ago, I didn't know how to do that. She taught me how to create content and all of these things. And that 3,000 investment
Mm.
was worth every single penny.
There you go. Just a way of, again, like the importance of investing in yourself, right? And that's just one of those ways that you kind of mentioned that it's shown up in your journey over and over again. Um, I know it has for me. Is just constantly investing in yourself and taking that leap, right? I mean, what made you take that leap to begin with? And I know you said you mentioned that you're gonna have like a kid and the debt, but why did you want to go down that path specifically versus, I don't know, going back into like the corporate world, right?
Yeah. So, first of all, I took a finance class through my MBA and learning about compound growth in the stock market and how you can buy into the S&P 500. My brain went to, I need to make more money. My brain didn't go to, I need expenses. So that
Yeah.
was number one. Number two is I had left a corporate career that was very, very toxic for me.
Mm.
I mean, to the point where it was giving me PTSD. And so I
Wow.
decided that I needed to let go. And I started working since I was 14, Kevin. So
Yeah.
I've never not worked.
Mm-hmm.
And deciding to leave the job and deciding not to go back has been one of the most revolutionary things I've ever done because now, fast forward to 2025 when we're recording the podcast, I have brand deals that pay me what I was making in corporate in like one day. And I don't want people to think that it's like overnight success because it's not. But I have so much autonomy on my time, my
That's the biggest
creative
thing, is what I was
brain,
gonna say. It's like time, right? That's the
and I
biggest
love
factor.
it.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. If I
Hmm.
feel like I don't want to show up on Monday,
Right.
I don't show up on Monday. And
Mm-hmm.
so just having the autonomy of the time, but also becoming limitless because no one can tell me how much money I can make except me.
That's true. That's true. You don't have to
And
ask yourself for a raise. I mean, you do, but like, you know.
yeah, and I love that. And in entrepreneurship, as you know, not everything is rainbows and butterflies. We don't always have consistent income. And this is why when the income is there, we have to go find it. And so I personally don't see myself going back to a corporate setting unless I'm like 60 and my girls are already gone to college. And even then, I probably still be like, I don't know.
You're like probably thinking about it back. You're like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to being a stay-at-home mom. Like instead of
Yeah.
having to go back. No, the corporate world is brutal. Um,
I
believe me.
do want to say though, I do have a lot of corporate clients, so I don't want
Yeah,
to say that corporate is bad for everyone because I have worked with some amazing, amazing partners. And another thing that I also recommend to people, just because you don't want to be part of the corporate environment
yeah,
doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn the skill set that is value in corporate America. So, for example, as an entrepreneur, learning project management and the
yeah,
technical skills has served me well. And the reason how I know about this is because I have built relationships with corporations, and then my brand deals also come from corporations.
yeah,
So it's just like at some point you realize that certain things are not for you. And for
yeah.
me, corporate America is definitely not for me.
No, no, and and that's the biggest thing is like realizing what works for you. So you got to try both, right? If corporate America necessarily doesn't work for you, try entrepreneurship. If you try entrepreneurship and you're like, oh, this is way worse, and you go back to corporate America, then you at least tried, right? um but I'm a big advocate for, and I think some people forget too, of using like what I say is like your 9 to 5 to build your dream, right? You can still have your, like, you don't have to. I know there's a big stigma, obviously, and like if you're a big like entrepreneur that like corporate bad, like leave corporate as soon as possible, go be an entrepreneur. Um, but yeah, you don't have to. You just as long as you have the mindset, it's like a mindset shift. That you're using that corporate job to make your own like dreams a reality because you need to be financially stable, right? Then I think that's one of the biggest mind shifts that you can have. When you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I also say that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You got to try it.
Yeah. However, by the time we're recording this podcast, I have this table in front of me and it has one leg. It's a cocktail table. Okay. So it has one leg. So that's your 9 to 5.
Hmm.
Entrepreneurship, it's the same table, but it just gives you the opportunity to add more legs to it. And those are
Mm,
income streams. I
mm,
have
love that.
clients that have a 9 to 5 right now and they're building something on the side. Or I have
Nice.
a client too that has a 9 to 5, but is very toxic
Hmm.
and she's planning her exit strategy, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know, you're making me think about corporate. Like if I ever go to corporate, which I don't think I will probably go into tech or fintech because I love technology and I
Yeah.
never thought I would say that by the way.
That's interesting because I always thought about that too. I love technology. I sometimes do like a tech segment, just like like daily events and tech news. But I would love to get into financial tech. I also think it's like the future, and it's shaping like everything in the system around us, anyways. And it'd be
Yes.
such in demand. Like I would definitely love to do that. But but now that we're even talking like corporate America, and you mentioned that you have an MBA as well, and you kind of tiptoed around this a little bit. How I want to know like how that shaped your experience with money, right? How did being in that corporate world shape your mindset,
So it
especially in the
shifted.
environment that you were in? Because you said it wasn't like a good environment for you, right?
No, however, there was a lot of pressure also to be part of like the good old boys club. And
Oh,
so how that setting shaped my spending was very
yeah.
unhealthy because I always felt like I needed to have the latest shoes, the latest suit. Our company or
Hmm.
my former company used to take us like somewhere every year as a corporate retreat.
Okay.
And I always felt like I needed to have just the looks to fit in.
Mm.
I was also a young executive. And so, in order for me to look older, I need to dress different to
Hmm.
be taken seriously. And so, I will spend money on literally looking less Latina, which I actually wrote a blog about this. And people came after me like, oh my God, she tiene el nopal en la frente and she has like all of these. But because people don't understand code switching, right? And people that are not
Yeah,
aware of what it's like to code switch in corporate and what it's like to navigate spaces when you don't see
that's
women
true.
that look like you. It's hard. And so
It's part of that.
after,
Sorry, it's like part of that like climbing that like corporate ladder, that where I definitely know like and understand what you're saying. Where you have to like the code switching and like the looking like the people around you and your position and what you need to do to get to the top, right?
yeah, absolutely. And when I was an executive, like there was a point in my career where I was the boss. I was the boss of the people that once hired me. And when people used to come to my work and ask for the boss, and I would get out and be like, "Hey, how can I help you? I'm Lucy King." And then they're like, "No, I'm looking for the boss." And I was like, "I am the boss, right?" And so even people questioning my ability to lead because in their mind, I'm supposed to look like somebody else or be older, that really affected me internally. And that's why I also overspend because I just wanted to use money as a way of like soothing myself versus like I wish at that point like little me knew that hey, you can invest and get the hell out of here because that's probably easier.
So I want to know how your formal education obviously got you a job as an executive, I'm sure, right? Because most executives have like an MBA and they just kind of like required for them at this point. But what do you think? I mean, what's your opinion on the role of like formal education in building wealth or even like accessing opportunities?
Yeah. So because I moved so much growing up, I never had a traditional education. So
Oh,
I
okay.
could be on, I don't know, fifth grade, and then my mom is like, we gotta move somewhere else.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
tough.
I actually dropped out of school when I was 14 years old to help my family
Oh,
financially. And I didn't get back until I was 16, 17 years old, the
oh
almost
wow.
18 years old. And so my education was the public library. And eventually I didn't have enough money to go to a 4 year college. And I probably would not succeed in a 4 year college. So most of my education comes from community college. Like I am a big advocate of community college.
Me
So
too. Hell
you're,
yeah.
if
Love
you're
community
watching
college.
this
Yep.
and you're
Mm-hmm.
like, should I go to a university? Start with your 4 year
Yep.
college. And I continued to work as I was also studying. And my first job with my company that I left was as a housekeeper. So my first job was scrubbing toilets. I didn't care. I said, I need the money. I'm going to do whatever I need to. And then I climbed the ladder. And one of the things that served me well was actually asking questions like, hey, how much does the front desk person makes? Because I'm like, if I'm a housekeeper and they make more money than me, what a skill set do I need to gain to make it there? And so just asking those questions like, what is the skill set? How much money are you going to pay? Really pushed me to say, well, I need to learn how to speak better, or I need to learn how to smile less or smile more, depending on the job that I was doing. And I literally tried everything within the company until I became the general manager. Now,
Wow.
when I received my 2 year degree, I came to my boss and said, I'm quitting this company because I'm going to go be a manager somewhere else. And they say, You can be a manager with us." And so after that, I continued to climb, but then I also earned my bachelor's program through another community college. They were running a
Wow.
pilot program that essentially was going to give you access to a 4 year degree at a community college. And I said, I'll take it. I will
Wow, you're
take it.
very motivated though. Like you don't
Yeah.
just
And
go
so
out and do like most people don't just go out and do this, but like you sound like you were very motivated.
I was, and the reason why is it's truly because the way I grew up was so unstable.
Yeah.
And I I think that's also like that was my survival mechanism. Most
Mm,
people shut down and
right.
they wait. I think mine was like, well, if this happens and this happens and this happens, I need to have all of these. So when it happens, I'm ready for it. So I've always had that kind of mentality. And my MBA was the one that I ended up paying.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, like, did it help me
Right.
become a better entrepreneur? Probably not, but it does give me the opportunity to share my journey as an educator now. And it also opens the door for me to essentially be able to secure contracts with corporations, non for profits, because they do like that. I don't necessarily need it, but they see that as like, oh, she has an MBA, like she knows what
Right.
she's doing, right? And so now I joke with my oldest daughter, who's 7 years old. I say, like, when you go to college, I'm gonna come with you so I can become a doctor. And she's like, a doctor in what, mommy? I'm like, doctor for money. But I just
Economics.
joke like, just joke like,
Yeah.
like that I'm going for more. And right now, I continue to study, but I don't do it for the certifications anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't like I'm part of different study groups or cohorts, but I don't go for the certification. And in fact, if people tell me like, oh, you get a certification after this, I don't do it. So I
Hmm.
do the opposite. I look at some things that I want to learn that I never had the opportunity to do because money was an issue. Let me give you an example. I'm learning about skincare right now.
Okay.
And a lot of people say, "Well, just watch a YouTube and you're fine, right? Like you can be fine." But I like learning about skincare routines because I never had a skincare routine.
Yeah.
I'm also learning about storytelling
Well,
and
let me tell you, your skin looks great. So I think it's paying off whatever you're doing. So
thank you. And so I'm learning a lot of new skill sets. I'm a public speaker, and so I'm learning how to breathe better so I don't sound like when I'm talking. I'm learning how to take up space on the stage. I'm doing all of these things that don't give me a certification, but it's a skill set that in return is going to help me make more money.
Yeah, I mean, you're a lifelong learner. Like that's how I like to describe it as well. And then you have that little motivation for yourself as well. Like, hey, it's going to help my skill set. It's going to help me promote myself to companies and brands and kind of brings back the I'm also like aware that you know, you don't need a formal education um to obviously succeed in life. But I am a big education advocate for the same reason. Like if you have the opportunity, then definitely do it, right? Especially like if you get like a scholarship. I've seen kids that get scholarships and they're like, "Well, it's not for me." It's like, oh my gosh, that boggles
Yeah.
my mind. I'm like,
Apply
"You're
for
going for
free money.
free." Yeah, you're going for free. Like go and like at least like try it out. Like see how it goes, right? And understanding that, you know, I definitely understood like being just in the corporate world that it's what gets you in the door. Like it's what gets your foot in the door. Um, and that's the biggest, like easiest way to kind of advocate for yourself as well. It just gives you that I want to say legitimacy, but not really because it's just a piece of paper. But that's what unfortunately that's what it is, right? That's
An
how they
accolade. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
So
But
if you want to become successful, learn about investing,
yeah,
taxes, sales,
yes,
and marketing.
yes,
Those four things will help you make so much money.
yes.
And YouTube University is big. I value education because it helped me get out of poverty.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband and I both believe in people need to get an education, but also you need to be, even if you're like, I don't have motivation, you gotta go
Yeah,
find it because no one is gonna come and save you. That's the truth.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
And so if you want to learn something, but you're not fully like committed, use YouTube. YouTube has so many resources. The library, I love the library. There's so
Yeah,
many
no, same.
resources that are for free
Underrated.
and use them. And one of the things that also has served me well as an entrepreneur is this concept of I'm a student of my business. So if I do something in my business and it doesn't work out, do I feel bad? At the beginning, I did. Did I cry? At the beginning, I did.
Yeah.
Now, what I do is like I think about how can I say this in a better way? If
Mm-hmm.
I didn't automated something that needed automation, how can I do it next time? And so I have this almost like a founder's mindset of I'm a student of my own business and I will always be learning something new. And that's when learning about tech comes in, learning about fintech, learning about other like currencies too. Like, is there anything else I need to know? Because we are evolving as a society. And if we don't learn about money, and also I forgot to mention AI, we are going to be left
Yeah.
behind and we are already behind.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that kind of gets us back into why like I think you and I are also just so interested in fintech is because we see what's happening like in the space too and where it's evolving, and but I want to get more into your business. I know we talked a little bit about your growing up and just your education, your formal education, your corporate and your corporate work as well. But I want to get now started in seeing like how you developed like your business and like Say Hola Wealth and how that came about as well as into your podcast. And I know now that you're doing a book. So let's start. Just how did you start like your coaching business? You know.
Yeah. So I had a business idea, but I didn't know what it looked like. And the moment the pandemic hit, and I was in my living room watching the TV, which I normally don't do. And I saw this headline that said, women are losing jobs without having a fully funded emergency fund. My
Mm,
heart just dropped, and I was crying in the living room with my husband. And even right now, thinking about it makes me want to cry again because it was just so powerful for me
yeah.
to realize that, man, we work hard. Like we
Hmm.
work so hard as a community, men and women alike work hard. And I said, how come we don't know about money? How come we don't know about investing? And I just remember looking at my husband and I'm crying and I said, my business is going to be about financial literacy. And he's like, okay. And he's like, trying to console me, like, okay. And the next day, I started to reach out to people that I knew here in the local community.
Oh,
And
wow.
I thought that I was gonna walk in and people were gonna say, yes, Lucy, what a great idea. Bring it on. How can we help? And instead, people were like, wait, what? Who are
Really?
you? Who are you with? Or no, we work with the local bank. But
That's
I know
interesting.
someone who's like, okay, one person told me no, and I stopped. I actually decided I'm gonna go and keep asking at least 10 people. And if 10 people tell me no, then I'll
Yes.
figure it out. So I
Hmm.
continue to go on the same thing. Nope, sorry, we don't do that. Hey, what are your credentials? What do you have? Like, really, who are you? Nobody knows you. And I was like, okay. So having that, what society will see as a failure, give me the opportunity to think, okay, how can I create a business that doesn't have a location, but is actually location independent? So that's the moment that I
Mm,
realized I can help someone in California, I can help someone in New York, I can help someone in Texas,
right.
Colorado, Arizona, and essentially just go national. And then I didn't think I was going to go international, but I am an international coaching and consulting business now. And that
Okay.
is because someone told me no. And that's the
Hmm.
lesson that I would love for your listeners to take from this conversation. You will always have no's in your job. Yeah, feel bad for yourself, cry it out because I do that too. But then wash your face and then come back to the table and say, how can I solve this? And so I started developing my offer, which is a big mistake that I made because I thought, well, if I have a module on this and this and this and this, people are gonna come
Like something
rather
to
than
present
me,
to people?
yeah, to present. And
Hmm.
because that's the corporate mindset, right? Like I
You're
need
right.
to be
Yeah.
there, I need to have the logo, I need to have the lesson plans
Right.
and crickets.
Right.
So then I was like, where's everyone? Why are people not buying from me? But then I realized that the curriculum that I develop now and the marketing and even the sales page, all of that comes from my clients. So that client have a problem and that client tells you how they feel and that client tells you what solutions they want. And as a coach and as a consultant, our job is to help that facilitate the transition from I'm stuck to like, hey, I invested 10,000 or whatever it is that you offer, and focusing less on the how my business should look like and actually create client results. That's how my clients have invested 5.5 million combined.
Wow, that's huge.
And now I have systems and now I have
Yeah.
processes, right? So I started with one-on-one coaching for a full, actually 2 years, until I hit my first 100K with one-on-one coaching. After
Wow.
that, then I decided to scale into group, sometimes depending on the seasonality of the business or politics or climate change or whatever, things change, right? And so now I have a virtual academy that I continue to launch. I love it. My clients love it. They get results.
That's
And
good.
then I scale to a mastermind where I'm teaching people how to launch their own coaching business, podcast, wherever it is that they want.
Hmm.
But it's all with systems, like a scalable systems. And really, like now, my clients are telling me what is the next offer that I should launch. Like it's not an offer that I came up with it. My client said, hey, I'm struggling with this and I don't know how to solve it. And so my
Mm.
job is Well, I'm gonna
To
solve
solve
it
it.
for you.
To solve it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
There's a
that's
lot of
also
learnings and failures, and
yeah.
as you know, there's also a lot of doubt. I don't think we talk enough about doubt in
Oh yeah.
entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And so being in rooms with people that share your vision is so important because our parents, our husbands are not our client. A good example of is
Yeah.
today. My podcast ran the first ever third party ad,
Oh,
and I
awesome.
didn't get notified that it was going to happen. And so I'm listening to my own podcast. And the reason why I ended up listening was because I was getting ready to share a link with a client, and
Mm-hmm.
I hear this ad, and
You're like, I'm getting an ad in my own
I'm
podcast.
like,
That's hilarious.
I'm like, wait, what? Wait a minute. And so I'm
Yeah.
researching, and then I go to the platform, and I'm like, why is there an ad? And the ad was actually hilarious too. It wasn't inappropriate or anything. It's totally something that I will use, by the way, because I'm an outdoor
Okay.
person. But
Yeah.
I'm laughing about it. And then I texted my husband and I said, my podcast has been approved to run ads. And I told him like what it means, like monetarily, how much am I gonna make? And he's like, okay. I texted my best friend and I said, oh my God, my podcast. And she's like, holy guacamole, like you've been
Yeah,
podcasting
yeah.
for many years. Good job, la 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 la, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the difference of being in rooms with people that understand your vision. And not that my husband doesn't understand my vision because he does,
Yeah,
but he
yeah.
doesn't know what it means to have people listening to your podcast and
No,
having
yeah.
a party ad. Does that make sense?
It
I'm
makes
sure you
total sense.
do
It's like
too.
like-minded people, you know what I mean? Like I could
Yeah.
tell like my mom that I have certain amount of listeners or like whatever per episode. I'd be like, oh, that's great. But if I told someone that's like in the space that I know close, like yourself or something, like I just got like my first ad, like for example, like you said, like that's amazing. Like we know that the accomplishments and like people
Yeah.
listening and like that's so cool, right? Like
I'm like, I don't care if they pay me 5 cents per
no,
episode.
yeah.
I'm getting money.
Right. No, yeah, it's exciting too, right?
Yeah, and so if you have listeners, which I know you do, that
Hmm.
want to build something, make the investment in yourself. Like
Yeah.
work with Kevin, right? Like if you're someone who's like, I want to have this idea and I want to do these, that investment that you make in
Yeah.
yourself is totally worth every single penny. And it's also not gonna be the first investment that you make in yourself.
Yeah.
My latest investment was hiring a coach so I could write the book that is coming out next year.
Yes.
And that book was never part of my vision at all. And I had so many
Oh,
people
okay.
like DMing me, emailing me, have you thought about writing your story? It could help you secure partnerships in corporate or speaking
Oh,
engagement or
interesting.
blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm already doing that. Like, if anything, I want less speaking engagements. I want like less, but they're gonna get paid more. And so
Yeah.
the book came about because I am a mom
Hmm.
and my daughters read a lot. Like they're addicted to reading. And one of my
That's
daughters
awesome.
actually said, I can't wait to read your book, Mom. It's gonna be so
Oh.
cool. And it made me think like, yeah, why am I not thinking about writing a book?
Hmm.
And it has been a journey. It has been hard. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
lie, especially because you heal parts of your money story. And then as you're writing it, it kind of comes back, right? So you have to like regulate, or if you work with a therapist like I did, you have to go back to like talk to your therapist about like, hey, as I was writing this chapter, like this other memory came up, and
Yeah.
some of those memories are not very pleasant.
Mm.
But I'm excited about the book because it's so beautiful and it's so much fun, and it has so much of my personality when
Oh, I
I was
love that. Uh,
growing up. Like that,
yeah.
the very imaginative. So I used to read a lot of comic books when I was growing up. I don't know if you
Okay.
did.
Yeah, yeah, no.
And
Yeah, I love.
the book almost feels like that. Like
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
like people are gonna love it. It's a good it's not a good, it's a great book on personal finance, but also
Yeah.
the readers will find themselves in the book. So it's not your typical invest in the S&P 500 and make sure you know about
Yeah.
stocks and bonds and let me put you to sleep. Like it's gonna help you laugh. It's gonna help you cry. because there's a lot of crying in the book, and I actually tell you
Oh.
that, like, go get your pañuelitos now because we're gonna cry. Okay? But I also help you take a lot of action throughout the book so you can become your own dream, because we can no longer continue to say that we are our ancestors' wildest dreams, because our ancestors couldn't dream so big. They were in survival. And
Yeah,
so the book is going to help people really redefine success and reclaim the financial prosperity that we know we want. Even
I
if
love
someone
that.
says, "No, I'm not good with money." Yes, you
Yeah.
are.
Yes, you are, and you're gonna tell them why in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, since we're into it already, let's get some structure into the timeline of this book and just what how it came about. I would definitely love to pick your brain about it even more, right? So, obviously, you have a book that you're writing, and my biggest question was, what motivated you to write it? Because I know I think specifically for Latinas, right?
Yes.
If I'm correct, yeah. So what motivated you to write it specifically for Latinas?
Because I'm a Latina, and also because there isn't a lot of authors that are Latinas, and there are books written by women in finance, and there are books that are written by white women that are great, that talk about patriarchy, systemic issues, but never been through the lens of a Latina. And so I wanted to write something that spoke to our live experiences as the first gen, as an immigrant, and also share a little bit about our cultura and what we heard growing up and how that isn't true. But I also wanted to bring some sazon, because we're also used to reading books that are very like, is the same thing of the same thing, right? And
Hmm.
so I am very creative, by the way, and I used to be ashamed of being creative, and I'm like, no, I'm reclaiming my creativity, and that book has a lot of that, a lot of creative
Okay.
ways to engage the reader, excuse me, and even help them see like, wait, I didn't even think she could say that, or she would say that, or I never thought about it this way. My money philosophies are also part of the book. And to be able to have my own money philosophies that don't align with how finance is taught, that took a lot of clients. That took a lot of
Mm,
coaching. That took a lot of, how can I be different in a river of sameness, right?
right.
Everyone talks about cutting expenses. Everyone talks about frugality. Everyone talks about budget, the 50-20-30 method, like all of
Sure.
these things that are the same. You're like, oh, right? So I use my creative way to say, how can I be different and disrupt the finance, like the finance way of how things are being taught, like financial education. And so that's what the book is about too. It's about disrupting how finance is taught. So it doesn't have to be boring. It's super fun. I mean, if I
I,
share more, I'll probably give it away,
well,
but
I was gonna say, can you?
I'll send you a
Well,
copy.
well, yes. Well, thank you. I would love that. I would love
And you
that.
can be a Latino man and read the book, and you will enjoy the
Yeah.
book.
Oh
Like
yeah.
you will, like I have coach
Yeah.
men too, by the way, as a coach.
Yeah.
But the book, you don't have to be a woman to read the book. Like you will find it so fun, and you're gonna take away so many things. And as a Latino man, we are also taught that los hombres no lloran, right? Like, oh, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that book could actually help you release a lot of the shame that comes with the cultural expectation of you have to be strong.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. That's also why I love reading like books written by Latinas as well, because there is you can tell some of those have that that's a sewing, but in the emotional part, a lot of financial books written for men is like you have to not be emotional, and like it is what it is. Like a 401k is just a 401k. Like there's nothing more to it, especially like in the Latin American community, right? Um, Especially like if you don't know that and you're first being introduced to it, I think you have to get really creative, and that sounds like what you're doing with your book. I am curious. I don't know if you can talk anything about it, or you could just give us an example how you would um, explain something like a, I don't know, or talk about like a 401k or something that's boring, and how do you add your own creativity to it? I would love to just know
Yeah,
like a
I can
maybe
give
even
you
like a little
I
snippet
can
of
give you
your
guys a
mind.
teaser.
Yeah.
So I come from the hospitality industry, okay? And so the way I explain investing in index funds and all of that in the S&P 500 is using terms that are relatable to people that everyone in our community has a stay in a hotel or at least driven by a hotel, right? And so I use a lot of the storytelling, live experiences to explain how things work. For example, taxes, right? Like we can explain taxes with a pizza. Like we don't need to talk about tax brackets. We can just talk about pizzas and make it fun.
Yes.
And so I make it very simple, but I also don't make you feel like you're not smart enough to understand, right?
I
Because
love
there's
that.
a balance. And so if you want to write a book, start writing right now. And the thing is, a lot of us already have been creating content for so many years. Like
Mm-hmm.
for my book, when I was working with my book coach, and she said, well, let's start working on your outline on what the book is going to look like. I didn't just sit down and stare at the computer and I was like, well, where do I want to take my reader? I started
Right.
thinking, what have I done? What kind of research have I done? What kind of reels have I posted? What kind of things? And so I started using her method that she was teaching me, but then I started seeing a pattern like, oh my God, I talk a lot about debt. So maybe
Right.
my chapter needs to be bigger for debt than it is on saving, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I started talking about, oh my God, I use this analogy of like me working in hospitality to do this, or what else can I do? And I realized like I do want to add illustrations to the book, which is something that my book also has.
Okay. I was gonna ask, yeah. So does
But I
that mean
said,
that you have illustrations?
how can I add illustrations that are actually going to resonate with my community? And I'm not an illustrator. And so what I
Mm-hmm.
did was I decided to hire a Latina illustrator,
Cool.
and
Cool.
she's super creative. Like I seen her work, and she's about my age, I think, maybe slightly younger. I actually
Mm-hmm.
not sure about her age, but she's so creative. And so the book, I wanted to really not make the book about me. The book is about us. And
Right.
so everything that is going into the book, from the investment in myself, the investment in the illustrator, the investment on who's going to help me with everything else that goes into launching a book, all of the money is coming back to our community. And that's actually one of the principles that I also teach in the book. How
Mm-hmm.
can you use your economic power to give back to our community? Because everyone drops the statistics on Latinos, like, oh my God, we have a 3.5 trillion million in GDP and la 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 la.
Yeah.
Where's your money going?
Mm-hmm.
Are you still buying fancy French purses that society tells us that we need to have, or is it going back to a luxury Latina brand, because they do exist, right? And so
Yes.
in the book, I talk about that we have to just stop dropping statistics, and we need to look in our wallet and say, how am I spending my money? Like, am
Yeah.
I really leveraging my platforms to help our community and my money? Or am I just repeating the same thing that somebody else is doing just so I can look smart?
Right. Yeah, you actually have to be about it, right? Like actually take action instead of being like, yeah, you bring awareness to it, but if you are bringing awareness to it and you're also taking action, you're even if it's just a tiny bit, right? You're helping better that statistic if it's a if it's a bad one, right?
Yeah,
uh
and there's a lot of mindset work and identity
yes.
also in the book, because a lot of us have so much of the helper identity. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
am a worker, I work hard. Even if you're investing and you're like, no, but I have to work harder to make more. And
Yeah.
so I have a chapter on how to shift from that worker mentality into the investor mentality while honoring our own values, right? Because you earlier
Mm-hmm.
talk about how some personal finance book talk about like, don't be emotional. And it's
Right.
like, no, like being emotional is great. Like emotion has made me thousands of dollars.
I
So
love
why would
that.
I not become emotional about something when it
Mm-hmm.
literally can help me make thousands, millions?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do talk about that, like how to make money with feeling your emotions. And
Yes.
the illustration for that chapter is so good.
Oh my God, you're hyping me up because I want this book right here, right now. which which begs me to ask, do you have like a timeline for the release?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, all right.
I do have a timeline and it is coming out next year, quarter 1.
Yes,
So I will let everyone know when it's coming. I will reach out to you so you can let your audience know.
yes,
But the
please.
best way to also be in the know is by joining my newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
So if you'd like to know when it comes out, join my newsletter, sayholawealth.com, and reach out to me. If you have questions, reach out to
Please.
Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait until you're ready to make a financial move because that's never going to happen.
Period. Mic drop. So if you have anything else, Lucy King, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and just enlightening us with a little bit of your journey and just all the work that you're doing. But if there's anything that I missed or you'd like to go over or even just promote anything else other that maybe we didn't talk about, this is your time. So,
Thank you so much. So definitely join the newsletter. I also want to thank you for the work that you're doing because your podcast is amazing and you
thank
also
you.
take a lot of pride in the way you show up and the way you want to serve our community. So the last thing I want to say is thank you for
Oh,
inviting me
thank you.
to your podcast and thank you for doing the work. Thank you for being a resource for our community. And I just can't wait to send you the book. And who
Oh my
knows, maybe I'll
goodness.
come to your city and we'll do a book tour there or something.
That would be amazing. Even if, because I'm in Jersey, even if you go to like New York, I'll make the trip to New York. It's just
Yeah,
a
there you
hop and a
go.
skip away. So, and I know New York's a big spot for like book tours. So, if you do, you gotta keep me in the loop. And I'll obviously be looking at your social medias for your process and the book.
Absolutely.
That's always so
Yes.
interesting. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please share it with a family or a friend and rate it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps tremendously in order to bring more awareness and educational resources to our community. For more information and to stay up to date with what I'm doing, you can follow me on Instagram at Latinaamericaneo. And if you need more information and resources, you can visit my website, latinaamericaneo.org. I'm Kevin Munoz. This has been the Leo Podcast, and I'll see you next time.